preview, I'm going to go ahead and fly the next leg of my Iditarod 2024 flight. I left off at Nicolai. You can see it's pretty much in the middle of nowhere. Well, I guess McGrath and Takotna are towns. We'll see what's there. But I wanted to go ahead and fly it in case you fly it behind me, you'd know what to expect. On the previous leg, I iced up coming into Nicolai. Although it was foggy when I landed, it's clear today. I'm actually flying live weather. This is live weather in Alaska as of January. It's as likely as it would be in March to be as cold as it's going to get. We'll see if we have any icing. There are some low hills we've got to get over. This, I believe, Ophir maybe? Either Cripple or Ophir. One of these waypoints along here is the halfway point of the Iditarod. I think the mushers get like a little bag of gold nuggets or something for being the first one into that checkpoint. So let's go ahead and fly it. If you want to spawn mid-flight plan like I did here, see our first flight state video in the how-to playlist to learn how to do that. I'm spawned on the runway I asked for again. See our first flight state video if you want to learn how to spawn in the middle of a flight plan like this. This is the entire Iditarod route, and I'm just spawned where I left off. Let's go ahead and check it out. It's early in the day, so icing may not be an issue. Turn on my wind. 7-knot wind, okay. Looks like it's a pretty dry day, so icing may not be an issue. I'm zoomed way out here because there's not going to be any landmarks to see on the map. Lakes and rivers is all you're going to see. I've got myself zoomed out far enough so I can get a wider view because there's nothing really to see in detail. We got a 17-knot tailwind, so I should be making pretty good time. And my ground speed's 125-ish. I didn't read the actual turn-by-turn directions from the Iditarod website on this one, but you can just see how remote this is. I assume the mushers have to come through this little river valley to get to McGrath, which is their next checkpoint. So presumably they would have to come through here somewhere. After just flying this in a simulator, even on a nice day, I can't imagine trying to cross these vast expanses on a dog sled in this wind and cold. I mean, we've got a 22-knot tailwind. Well, it's down to 15 knots. So we're making great time, but I wouldn't want to be on the ground in a 20-knot wind, even on a nice day. I think I'm turning north. Well, it's not too bad. I guess the question will be when I make this turn, if the prevailing winds are still, where are they? It's going to be largely a crosswind, liable to not make such great time, and we'll be white knuckling sideways the whole way. So there's McGrath. Unsurprisingly, looks to be a full-service airport. It's the first one since Anchorage that had an ICAO code. So yeah, you can see the fuel from here. They got hangars, they got aprons, they got... Oh, well, there's a road into McGrath, but I'm going to bet in the wintertime everything comes in by plane. That's McGrath. It's pretty easy leg to McGrath from whatever the last one was. Was it Nikolai? It was a relatively fast leg because I had nearly a 20-knot tailwind the whole way, but it's starting to become a crosswind. I was getting 130-knot ground speed. Now I'm down to 117. My wind speed over there is 12 knots, nearly a crosswind now. I guess as long as it stays consistent, I can just lean on my rudder and it doesn't feel too bad. Looks like I may have to do a little climbing here. Doesn't seem to be any moisture in the air though, so I haven't seen any icing at all. I got my cabin heat on full to try and get ahead of it. So Takotna Airport is also a lot more civilized than it appears on the satellite. Now it looks to me like they've got services, presumably fuel at least. I didn't even make an attempt to follow the Mushers Trail between McGrath and here because I didn't want to make it any longer than it already was by air. But I happened to read the Iditarod trail instructions for Takotna because the next one is Ophir, which I couldn't find. So I had to actually read the directions and try and follow the Musher Trail to Ophir because it is literally in the middle of nowhere and there is nothing there. There's no town. I think it's an abandoned gold town or something. But the instructions tell you to follow the main road out of town and then you follow this road up into the hills. It's pictured as is it an actual road or a trail? Yeah. You follow this road all the way till it ends up through these hills, or the mushers do. I guess it's right on the crest of that ridge line right there. But they've got to get up through this nonsense with dog sleds. Before too long, the road basically completely ends and presumably becomes a trail. I couldn't really find anything on the map. It just gave me a general direction, got me close enough to where the mushers were headed that I could draw a vector to where I guessed Ophir was, and I managed to find it. These are fairly low hills to get over in the Cub, but to get up through here and march on a dog sled takes some guts, to say the least. The wind is still whipping, 22 knot crosswind at times. But I have a nice warm cockpit and cockpit electronics that tell me where I need to go. And then I guess they probably follow, based on where we ended up, they probably follow this depression out of the hills into the valley and then to Ophir, which is basically what we're going to do because I'm so far off the flight path now. Ophir is out across this valley way down there. We're still, oh no, I guess we're 6 miles away. So halfway down this valley here before we reach those next set of ridge lines, we should find Ophir. I don't know if there'll be anything in Flight Simulator for it. We'll see. There was what was described as an abandoned airstrip. You could see in the satellite imagery, it looks like it's got like trees and bushes growing out of what used to be the runway. But that's where I dropped the pin. We'll see how Flight Simulator interprets it, if they actually have an airstrip here. There have been a couple where I did not expect Microsoft Flight Simulator to have an actual airstrip where it did. So a lot of these Podunk, Alaska airfields are legit airfields in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Hats off to Asobo, because man, there's a million little airstrips in Alaska. Wow, the trail is actually marked on the Google map. You can see it in Flight Simulator, and this should lead us straight to checkpoint Ophir. Ought to be right at the end of this ridge line. And according to the satellite imagery, it looks like the old airstrip went straight up this ridge line. Oh yeah, look, there's building. Look at that. Boy, Sobo is on it. I don't know that that's a legit airfield, but I can definitely land an X-Cub behind those houses there. I guess that's relatively accurately represented because even in the satellite imagery, it's not an active runway. Oh, I gotta be careful. The wind is still whipping. Gotta pay attention to what direction I'm going. That's checkpoint Ophir, and certainly in an X-Cub, you can land on the snow. Well, we're only 7 miles out of Cripple, which I'm going to assume is up in this little valley ahead of us. Basically an airstrip that looks like it's part of the road, or used to be an airstrip that's now part of what they're calling Jeep Trail. I think Cripple is maybe the halfway point for the Iditarod. I'm not sure if maybe Ophir was the previous waypoint. Whichever one it is, I think there's a pretty substantial purse for being the first musher into the halfway checkpoint. I think it's like 20 or 30 grand worth of gold nuggets or something like that. There's various prizes at certain checkpoints for being the first musher to reach it, and I think the halfway point was one of the significant ones. I know there's a trophy for it, but I think there's a purse as well. there should be an old airstrip here somewhere. Well, it's about 10:30 or 11 local time, and the winds have just been getting progressively stronger and stronger since I took off. We started at like 20 knots, and I've seen winds as high as 40 knots, so I don't know if that's normal or whether that just happens to be today. I'm flying live weather. Guess it really doesn't matter. What matters is what's the weather like in March. After the Iditarod is finished this year, I'm going to follow the coverage and follow the results and see if I can find out what the cargo requirements are, maybe a little more information about the Iditarod Air Force. I'm guessing that they have to move multiple tons of hay and dog food and human food every day along all these checkpoints. With dog teams up to 16 dogs, you'd go through a lot of hay and dog food. If you just had, say, 10 teams, that's 160 dogs coming through a given checkpoint. Yeah, there seems to be nothing here in Flight Simulator, but there's a checkpoint down there somewhere. Need to make sure the wind doesn't blow me out of the sky while I try and do this. We're coming in the bend in the river, and according to the satellite imagery, I guess that right there used to be a runway, that straight line there. Again, you could probably put an X-Cub down there. You might be able to put a Cessna down on skis, or the Pilotus. Alright, so we're 12 miles from Ruby, which is the first checkpoint on the Yukon River, which is where I was trying to get to. Ruby appears to have an airstrip. They have a windsock. And that airstrip seems to be at about 45 degrees, which turns out to be pretty handy today, because this is going to sound like a ridiculous sentence, but the winds have calmed down to 22 knots out of the northeast. So I'm gonna line myself up out here into the wind. Looked like the runway was on top of one of these hills up there. You can start to see the Yukon River there along the ridge line. Again, we're landing into a, well, it's calmed down some more even, 19 knot headwind. Judging by the previous runways, I don't think I'm gonna need my skis. Oh, I bet it's up along the top of this hill. And no matter what you do, the skis always make a lot of noise. This is Ruby. This is your first waypoint on the Yukon River. And I think the prize for getting here first for the mushers, I think, is like a steak dinner, which sounds pretty good. My arm is actually pretty tired from the windy flight. This was as far as I wanted to get. There's fuel over there, it looks like. Fuel and parking. We got ground crew over here. This will be the end of this preview, but stay tuned for a Iditarod homemade bush trip coming up in March after the actual Iditarod. We'll do some missions and some other fun stuff. Some of them probably with the caravan, and probably some with the Pilotus or the Skyhawk with skis to move supplies in and out of the, snow landings. This flight plan is available to fly at simflightplan.com/download. I'll include the link to it in the description box. Free to fly for everyone. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.